Hello everybody, welcome back to the Flix Files. So here we go, we're on to video 4 of my series of videos where I talk about select films in my collection that were made in the 1980s. And in this video, I've picked out some of my favourite movies that were made in 1983. So let's get right to it. The first one is the biggest grossing film of 1983. Which of course was the third Star Wars movie of the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi. I saw this on its original release at the cinema 3 times. And at the time that I saw it, I think for a period it was my favourite Star Wars movie. I just absolutely loved it. It was full of action. It was incredibly exciting. It had some fantastic visual effects and a very satisfying ending with Vader finally finding a part of his good side and saving his son Luke Skywalker. And just a terrific movie. I got the novel and I'd read the book before I saw the movie, so I already knew going into it what it was going to be about, what was going to happen. But seeing what I imagined up on that screen for the first time in 1983 was just such a thrill. And it's since dropped slightly in my list of favourite Star Wars films, and I did do a video about that. I did rank the Star Wars movies and go through the physical media of Star Wars that's in my collection. So if you want to see that, I'll just put a quick link up here. Suffice to say, it's still a very, very good movie, and I've got all the Star Wars films on 4K now, and this is probably the best quality that I've ever owned, this movie, and I've owned it over a lot of formats over the years. But I thought I'd go with a big start with this video and start with the biggest movie of 1983. And I'm going to leave my favourite movie of 1983 till the end. So we'll go through the others. So the next one is a movie that I've already done a deep dive on. The original video that I posted for this movie was taken down by YouTube because of the clips that I used. So I did learn a lot from that video. It was a hard lesson to learn because I so enjoyed talking about this film. And the film is Blue Thunder, directed by John Badham. And I really enjoyed talking about this movie in my deep dive. And I was so sad when it got taken down by YouTube. But I've since managed to kind of upload it by reducing the video size and just cheating a little bit. So again, if you want to watch that, I'll just put a link up here. And if you're a fan of that movie, or you've not watched it for a long time, but you remember it being very good, then give my video a watch, and hopefully that will encourage you to revisit this film because it is terrific. It's a really good bit of sci-fi action with Roy Scheider, a fantastic actor, Roy Scheider, playing the starring role. And I've always been a big fan of this film. I hope that one day it will get a really good 4K release. There's certain movies in my collection that if ever they get a 4K release, I'll definitely upgrade them on day one without any thinking about it. It would just be an automatic response. And Blue Thunder is definitely one of those movies. I just love everything about it. And interestingly, the third movie that I've picked for 1983 in my collection is also by the same director, and it was the very next movie that he did, because this movie was originally being directed by an American filmmaker called Martin Brest, who went on to direct the fantastic action comedy Beverly Hills Cop. And he started to work on this movie, but for whatever reason, he got replaced by the studio by the director John Badham. And he finished it off. He did some extensive reshoots and finished the movie. And the movie we ended up with is called War Games, starring Matthew Broderick. And I really like this film because I was kind of the age that Matthew Broderick was when he made this movie. And I was very much like him at that age. I was a bit of a computery, geeky nerd. And I was very fortunate enough to grow up in the era of home computers taking off. And in England, we had two major competitors, which were the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64. And there was a lot of friendly playground rivalry between those two formats. And I was lucky enough to own both of them. I had a ZX Spectrum in 1984, and I had that for about 18 months. And then towards the end of 1985, I sold that and upgraded it to a Commodore 64. But the whole thing with this movie, with Matthew Broderick being a bit of a computer nerd, and he reads about some upcoming video games that he'd really like to play, and he uses his computer and one of the very, very early style modems that were around in the early 80s to try and hack into this game software company. And he unwittingly hacks into the NORAD computer. So he almost triggers World War III. And that is the premise of this movie. And yeah, it's a terrific little film from the 1980s. It has aged quite badly. Any movie that heavily features technology will inevitably age rather badly as we look back. But there is still a lot to love about this film. It's a really nice snapshot of that period of time in the early 80s. And whenever I watch this film, it brings back lots of memories of my own teenage years and fiddling with computers. And I never hacked. I didn't get up to the kind of things that Matthew Broderick does in this movie. But it gives off that lovely vibe that just brings back warm, fuzzy memories of my childhood. So for that reason, I really like this film. And yeah, it's a nice one to have in my collection. And as with all these films, everyone that I've featured so far in this series, I'd recommend all of them. That's why I'm doing videos showcasing them. So any of these that you probably haven't seen and you're a fan of 80s movies, then definitely try and find them out and pick them up. But I would hope that regular viewers of this series will have seen most of these movies anyway. And all you're going to do is just agree with me. So the next one is a fantastic crime kind of drama directed by Brian De Palma, and it is of course Scarface. This was one of the very early scripts written by Oliver Stone before he became a filmmaker in his own right. Wonderful bravura performance by Al Pacino as Tony Montana, as it charts his progress into creating a big drugs empire in Miami. And it's a really good film. I've got the 4K version of it. It was a movie that I wanted to get on physical media for some time. And luckily, I delayed buying it for so long that when I eventually did make the decision that, yes, I'm going to buy this movie, the 4K had come out. So I bought the 4K version instead. So I don't really have a comparison to the Blu-ray. But the 4K does look really, really good. And it's a very good, I want to use the word fun, but given the subject matter and some of the things that happen in this movie, and there are some very violent things in this movie, but Brian De Palma is a filmmaker that I've always admired, and I'm sure he will definitely be popping up again in this series in a later video with one of his other movies. But yeah, this is a terrific film, and I think a lot of its charm and a lot of the reasons that make it good is Al Pacino, and the part that he played in this movie and how he played it is just fantastic. So the next one is the first of two Stephen King adaptations in 1983. This one is called Christine, directed by John Carpenter. And I have a lot of John Carpenter's movies on physical media, and I did do a video where I showcase those. So again, I'm just going to quickly pop a link up on the screen if you haven't seen that video. But I read a lot of Stephen King novels when I was a teenager, and I don't think I'd read Christine at the time that I saw the movie. So it was one of those situations where I'd seen the movie before I read the book. But it was very good to do it that way because I could imagine the characters in my head as I saw them in the movie when I read the book. And it's just a terrific movie. It's John Carpenter's early years. This is the movie that he made directly after The Thing. And quite a few critics would say that this is the beginning of his sort of downturn as a successful director, but I disagree with that. I think he did a couple of more good films after this. But I really like Christine. Having read the novel quite a few times now over the years, it's a very good adaptation of the book. It's got a very good cast. The likes of Harry Dean Stanton in a supporting role pops up. And just the way that they did Christine in terms of how she can regenerate when she gets damaged is very clever. And yeah, it's a very well-made atmospheric movie, as you would expect from John Carpenter. And I'd highly recommend you watch it if you've not seen it. And the other movie that I've picked out that is also a Stephen King adaptation is David Cronenberg's adaptation of The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken. And I've always liked this movie, and I've been after it on physical media for a long time. And I eventually managed to pick up a copy off eBay because I don't think, at the time that I bought this, I don't think it had a release in the United Kingdom. And the version I have, I think, is an Australian Blu-ray. But it's again, a very good adaptation of the book. And Christopher Walken's main performance is, he's very magnetic, and the way he plays it. And once he develops this power that he gets after an accident where he can touch people and kind of see important parts of their future, or really it's how they die. He can see either a very important part of their future or he can see their death. So he has the ability to warn people or try and influence the future. And that comes into play towards the end of the movie. But it's, again, a very well-made movie, and it has a terrific supporting cast. So we have the likes of Martin Sheen, who turns up as a presidential candidate, and Herbert Lom as Christopher Walken's doctor near the beginning of the movie. And Tom Skerritt as a local sheriff. He plays a good role in this as well. But yeah, it's a very good, of the Stephen King movie adaptations that have happened over the years, this and Christine are two very, very good ones, and I'd put them high up on the list. Maybe I'll do a video of that one day, actually. That's not a bad idea, to rank my favorite Stephen King book to movie adaptations. That would be quite fun. I think I'll make a note of that, and I'll do that for a future video. So the last movie that I've selected that was made in the year 1983 is also my favorite movie of 1983. I think when I looked at my list, I have about 15, 17 movies in my collection that were made in 1983. So these are the ones that I picked out. But I've saved the best till last. And the last movie is Philip Kaufman's The Right Stuff. And I remember seeing this for the first time on a VHS rental. And I knew when I watched it for the first time that I just loved it. And I knew it was a cracking movie. And what cemented that fact was when the movie ended, and I've just got such a vivid memory of this, and I stopped the video recorder and hit the rewind button, because it was a big thing back then of to be kind, rewind, and there was nothing worse than renting out a movie and realizing when you got it at the box that some that had rented it before you hadn't rewound the tape. So you had to sit for 5 or 10 minutes while the tape rewound. And I can remember rewinding The Right Stuff. This is such a silly memory, but it's so true. And thinking, God, this is taking ages to rewind. How long was this movie? And then being completely shocked when I looked and saw that it was over 3 hours and 10 minutes long, because it didn't seem that long. That's always a terrific sign that you're watching a fantastic movie. if time just zips by when you watch it and it doesn't seem like a long movie. And I can think of others that have that ability. Casino is one of them. That's a 3-hour movie, but it feels like 90 minutes. Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia is 3 hours, 40 minutes long with an intermission, but it just zips by because it's such a well-made, beautiful movie. And The Right Stuff is one of those films. It's about the very early days of the NASA moon missions, and this is to do with what was called the Mercury project and the Mercury 7, and how NASA got the idea of using test pilots and training them as astronauts right at the beginning of the space race with Russia. And it's just absolutely brilliant. I love it, and it has a terrific cast with the likes of Dennis Quaid, and Sam Shepard plays Chuck Yeager, because it's kind of got a couple of stories running parallel with each other. So we have the beginnings of the Mercury project, and also Chuck Yeager as he tries to keep his title of the fastest man alive, and to begin with he breaks the sound barrier, and then he's constantly trying to go faster and faster in all these experimental craft. But he realizes that once the Mercury and the Gemini missions take off, that he's no longer the fastest man on the planet, so he has to resign himself to that fact. But it's such a fantastic piece of historical storytelling that tells such an important part of that period of American history. And I would think that if you watched this movie and then watched it with the movie First Man starring Ryan Gosling, which was the Apollo 11 mission to the moon with Neil Armstrong, and then watched Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks, those 3 films would make a terrific sort of trifecta of the early days of NASA. It would be brilliant to watch those like over a big weekend. That would be my recommendation. But it's just a brilliant movie that has a lot of funny and exciting and interesting moments in it. And I think I bought the book of this, that it was based on the book by Tom Wolfe, I think his name was. And I remember reading that after I saw this movie. So I was very happy to get this on Blu-ray. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my pick of movies for 1983. So I'd be interested to see what you think. If there are any there that you think I shouldn't have chosen as sort of the cream of 1983, or if indeed there are other movies that you think I should have recommended that perhaps I don't own, that I should look into, please let me know. So in the next video, I'm going to be picking out movies from 1984, and that is going to be a longer video because there's quite a few movies in 1984 that I really want to talk about. I said previously that when I started making these series of videos, I knew from the off that 1984 and 1987 would be the important parts of this series, because they're 2 years that I feel had a lot to offer in terms of cinema. So I'm really looking forward to making the next video, and I hope you tune in for that. I hope you're enjoying this series and I've not bored you yet. So if you did enjoy that, give me a thumbs up, and if you keep an eye on my community page on my YouTube channel, I'll be posting a message on there to let you know when the next video will be appearing. But if you subscribe and, what do they say, ring that little bell thing, it will give you a notification when my video gets uploaded. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you all stay safe, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.